At my first ultrasound, the doctor started shaking. She pulled me aside and said, "You need to leave now. Call your lawyer and get a divorce." I asked, "Why?" She replied, "No time to explain. You'll understand when you see this." What she showed me made my blood boil. The first thing I remember is how cold the gel was. That it seems strange, doesn't it, that this is where my mind goes when I think about the day my life split in two. Not the flickering screen, not Dr. Reyes' face, not the way my husband's hand felt wrapped around mine in the waiting room just minutes before. The gel, cold and clinical against my stomach, and me lying there thinking about how I'd have to wipe it off before putting my shirt back on, wondering if it would leave a stain. I was 12 weeks along. We'd waited until the first trimester was behind us, until the risk of loss had dropped enough that I could let myself believe this was really happening. I was 34 years old, married for 6 years, and I'd wanted a baby for so long that the wanting had become a kind of background noise in my life. Something I'd learned to live with, like tinnitus or the hum of an old refrigerator. And now it was happening, finally happening. Daniel was in the waiting room because the clinic had a policy about partners during the initial scan, something about keeping the space calm, giving the mother a moment to connect with the process before bringing in the other parent. I hadn't questioned it. I'd just squeezed his hand, told him I'd see him in 20 minutes, and followed the nurse down a hallway that smelled like antiseptic and artificial lavender. Dr. Reyes was a woman in her early 50s with silver-streaked hair and the kind of steady hands you want in someone who's going to be delivering your child. I'd chosen her specifically because 3 different women in my prenatal yoga class had recommended her, said she was calm in emergencies, said she never made you feel stupid for asking questions. She smiled at me as I settled onto the examination table. "Ready to see your baby?" I nodded. My throat was too tight for words. The wand pressed against my belly, the screen flickered, and for a moment, maybe 2, maybe 3, everything was exactly as I'd imagined it would be. A gray blur resolving into something recognizable, the curved shape of a head, the flutter of a heartbeat visible before it was audible. Then Dr. Reyes went still. I've replayed that moment so many times that I can't be sure anymore what was real and what I've constructed from the wreckage of memory. Did her hand actually tremble, or is that something I added later, something my mind invented to make the story make sense? Did she really suck in her breath, or was that me? What I know for certain is this: she moved the wand. Slowly, deliberately, her eyes fixed on the screen with an intensity that made my stomach drop. "Is something wrong, I asked. The baby is fine." Her voice was careful, measured. "The baby is healthy." But she wasn't looking at me. She was still staring at the screen, her jaw tight, her brow furrowed in a way that made her look 10 years older. "Then what, Mrs. Holloway?" She set the wand down, turned to face me fully. And I saw it then, something in her eyes that I couldn't name. "I need you to get dressed. There's something we need to discuss privately." "Privately? My husband is just without your husband." She said it quietly, but there was steel beneath the words. "Please, get dressed and meet me in my office. 3rd door on the left." She was gone before I could respond. I lay there for a long moment, the gel cooling on my skin, the image of my baby's heartbeat burned into my retinas. My mind was racing through possibilities, genetic abnormalities, complications I didn't know the names of, worst-case scenarios that would require decisions I wasn't prepared to make. But she'd said the baby was healthy. She'd said that clearly, with no hesitation. So what the hell was going on? Dr. Reyes's office was small and cluttered, lined with bookshelves full of medical texts and framed photographs of babies she'd delivered. She was standing by the window when I came in, her arms crossed, her face drawn. "Please," she said, gesturing to a chair. "Sit down." "I don't want to sit down." My voice came out sharper than I'd intended. "I want you to tell me what's happening. Why did you look at me like that? Why can't my husband be here?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she moved to her desk, picked up a folder, and held it for a moment as if weighing something. "How long have you been married, Mrs. Holloway?" 6 years. What does that... And your husband, is he your first serious relationship? Dr. Reyes. I was shaking now, though I didn't know why. Please, just tell me. She nodded, opened the folder, pulled out 2 images, ultrasound printouts, I realized, though they looked different from the ones I'd seen in the examination room. These are from your scan today, she said. The first one is standard. It shows what you'd expect to see at 12 weeks, a healthy fetus, developing normally, strong heartbeat. She handed me the first image. I looked at it. My baby, real and alive and growing inside me. And this, she said, handing me the second, is what I found when I adjusted the angle. I looked at it. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. It looked the same. Gray blur, curved shape, the familiar outline of a developing child. Then I saw it. A second shape. Smaller. Positioned differently. But unmistakably present. Twins? I breathed. We're having twins? Dr. Reyes's expression didn't change. No, Mrs. Holloway, you're not having twins. She pointed to the second shape on the ultrasound, and as she explained, slowly, carefully, with the measured precision of someone who has delivered bad news too many times to count, I felt the floor fall away beneath me. It wasn't a second baby, it was the remnants of a previous pregnancy. A pregnancy that had ended early, so early that most women would never have known it existed. The tissue had partially absorbed, partially calcified, leaving behind what doctors call a vanishing twin, or, in cases like mine, what was more accurately described as retained products of conception. From a pregnancy I had never known about. A pregnancy that, based on the calcification patterns and tissue density, had occurred approximately 18 months ago. I don't understand, I said. My voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. I've never been pregnant before. This is my first pregnancy. There must be a mistake. Dr. Reyes was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was soft, almost gentle. Mrs. Holloway, I've been practicing obstetrics for 27 years. I've seen this before, rarely, but I've seen it. The body doesn't lie. She paused. Have you ever experienced a period that was heavier than usual? Perhaps 18 months ago, give or take, like cramping that seemed more intense than normal? I thought back, tried to remember. 18 months ago, we'd been renovating the house. I'd been stressed, sleeping badly, eating takeout 3 nights a week because the kitchen was torn apart. And yes, there had been a period, January, maybe February, heavier than usual. I'd even mentioned it to Daniel, asked him to pick up extra tampons on his way home from work. I'd thought nothing of it. But that doesn't mean I was pregnant, I said. That could have been anything. Stress, hormones. We were careful. We've always been careful. We weren't trying to get pregnant until I stopped. Because Dr. Reyes was looking at me with an expression I recognized now. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't concern about my health. It was pity. Mrs. Holloway. Her voice was barely above a whisper. The retained tissue tells a story. The calcification patterns, the positioning, the stage of development before absorption. All of it tells us something about when this pregnancy occurred and how far along it progressed before it ended. She hesitated. Based on what I'm seeing, this pregnancy ended at approximately 8 weeks. Natural causes. Likely a chromosomal abnormality that made the fetus non-viable. It's tragically common. Most women never even know it happened. Then why are you... The pregnancy occurred in early January of last year. She met my eyes. Do you understand what I'm telling you? I didn't, not at first. My mind was still spinning, still trying to process the idea that I'd been pregnant without knowing it, that I'd lost a baby I'd never known existed. And then it hit me. January of last year, early January, Daniel had been in Singapore from December 27th through January 15th. A work trip. His company was opening a new office in Asia, and he'd been chosen to lead the transition team. He'd been gone for almost 3 weeks. I'd missed him terribly. We'd talked every day on video calls, complained about the time difference, counted down the days until he'd be home. When that heavy period came, I'd been alone in the house. I'd texted him about it, actually, made a joke about my body being dramatic, and he'd sent back a sympathetic face emoji and asked if I needed anything. I'd been alone for 3 weeks, and I hadn't slept with anyone, which meant no. The word came out choked, strangled. No, that's not possible. You're wrong. You have to be wrong. I'm not wrong, Mrs. Holloway. But I couldn't breathe. The room was tilting, the walls pressing in. There has to be another explanation. The timing could be off. You could be misreading the timing is not off. Dr. Reyes' voice was firm now, but not unkind. I've consulted with a colleague before bringing you in here. We're certain. This pregnancy occurred while your husband was out of the country. She let that settle, gave me time to absorb it, and then she said the words that would echo in my head for months to come. Mrs. Holloway, you need to leave this office without your husband. You need to call your lawyer, and you need to get a divorce. I stared at her. Why? Because the pregnancy wasn't yours. I don't remember leaving her office. I don't remember walking down the hallway, past the waiting room, past Daniel sitting in a plastic chair scrolling through his phone. I must have said something to him, some excuse about needing to use the bathroom, needing a minute, needing air, because he didn't follow me. I ended up in the parking lot, leaning against my car, gulping down cold February air like a drowning woman. The pregnancy wasn't mine, and how could a pregnancy not be mine? I'm not stupid. I understood, on some level, what Dr. Reyes was implying. But my brain refused to assemble the pieces into a coherent picture. It kept sliding away from the obvious conclusion, kept looking for alternative explanations that made sense of the impossible. I thought about calling someone. My mother, my sister, my best friend Lucia, who'd been with me through everything, my wedding, my miscarriage scares that turned out to be nothing, my endless fertility anxieties. But what would I say? My doctor just told me that my body contains evidence of a pregnancy I didn't have, a pregnancy that apparently belonged to my husband's other woman. No, that couldn't be right. That didn't make sense either. I pulled out my phone, Googled retained pregnancy tissue from another person. The results were useless. Medical forums, fertility clinic websites, nothing that explained what Dr. Reyes was trying to tell me. I tried again. Pregnancy tissue found in wrong person. Misattributed pregnancy ultrasound. And then, somewhere in the rabbit hole of late-night medical search results, I found it. A case study, published in a gynecological journal 3 years ago, about a woman who'd gone in for a routine ultrasound and been told that she was carrying the remnants of a pregnancy. Except the pregnancy hadn't been hers, it had been her sister's. Her sister who had served as her surrogate. Her sister who had transferred embryos that hadn't fully implanted. Her sister, whose leftover tissue had migrated during a subsequent surgery and embedded itself in the woman's uterine wall. Medical anomaly, 1 in a million, the kind of thing that shows up in textbooks as a curiosity, a footnote, this can happen, but almost never does. I read the article 3 times, 4 times, and slowly, horribly, understanding began to dawn. Dr. Reyes wasn't saying that I had been pregnant with someone else's baby. She was saying that someone else had been pregnant, and the evidence had ended up inside me. But how? How was that even possible? The answer came to me in fragments, bits of memory surfacing like wreckage after a storm. The surgery, 18 months ago, the same window when that heavy period had occurred. I'd had a minor procedure, laparoscopic surgery to remove a small ovarian cyst. Routine, the doctor had said. Outpatient. I'd be home the same day, recovered within a week. Daniel had taken care of me afterward, brought me soup, helped me to the bathroom when I was too groggy to walk straight, slept on the couch so I'd have the bed to myself. He'd been so attentive, so loving. And the surgery had been performed at the same hospital where Daniel's company had a corporate partnership. The same hospital where his executive health plan covered everything. The same hospital where I was beginning to realize someone had made a terrible mistake. Or committed a terrible crime. I sat in that parking lot for 47 minutes. I know because I watched the clock on my phone, watched the minutes tick by, watched Daniel's text messages pile up. Everything okay in there? The doctor came out and said you left. I'm worried. Call me. I didn't call him. Instead, I called Lucia. Hey, Mama-to-be! Her voice was bright, unsuspecting. How was the ultrasound? Did you get pictures? Is it a boy or a girl? Are you... Lou? My voice cracked. I need you to meet me somewhere. I need you to come right now. Silence on the other end, then quietly. Where are you? Dr. Reyes' office, the parking lot. I'm leaving work now, don't move. She was there in 15 minutes. She didn't ask questions, didn't push, didn't do any of the things that well-meaning people do when they don't know what's happening but want to help. She just got into my car, took one look at my face and said, "Tell me." So I told her, all of it, the ultrasound, the second shape, Dr. Reyes' explanation, the timing that didn't match, the surgery 18 months ago, the impossible, incomprehensible conclusion that was forming in my mind. When I finished, Lucia was quiet for a long time. "Okay," she finally said. "Let me make sure I understand. You're saying that during your surgery, the cyst removal, something was transferred to you, something that wasn't supposed to be there?" "I think so. I don't know. It sounds insane when I say it out loud." "It sounds insane because it is insane, but that doesn't mean it's not true." She was quiet again, thinking. "Do you know who performed your surgery?" "Dr. Whitfield, Jonathan Whitfield. He's one of the top gynecological surgeons in the state." "And he's affiliated with St. Clement's?" "Yes, the same hospital where Daniel—" I stopped. Lucia was looking at me. Really looking, the way she does when she's figured something out before I have. "Where Daniel what?" "Nothing." "Grace." Her voice was gentle but firm. "Where Daniel what?" I didn't want to say it, because saying it would make it real, would give shape to the suspicion that had been growing in my chest since I'd read that case study, since I'd started adding up dates and details and coincidences that felt too precise to be coincidental. "Daniel's company has a partnership with St. Clement's," I said. "Executive health plans, concierge medicine, the whole thing. And his assistant, Emily." The name tasted sour in my mouth. "She had a procedure there about 18 months ago. Daniel mentioned it, said she'd taken a few days off for something minor, nothing to worry about." Lucia's face went very still. "What kind of procedure?" "I don't know. He didn't say. I didn't ask." "Grace, I know what you're thinking." "I'm not thinking anything yet. I'm just—" She exhaled. "This is a lot. This is a lot to process." "I know." "Do you think Daniel is involved? I mean, actually involved?" I didn't answer, because the truth was, I didn't know. I didn't know anything anymore. The ground I'd been standing on for 6 years had turned out to be quicksand, and I was sinking, and I couldn't see the bottom. "I need to find out," I said. "I need to know what really happened." "How?" "I don't know. Medical records, the surgery file, something." "You'll need a lawyer for that. Medical records are—" "I know. Dr. Reyes said the same thing." I looked at her. "She told me to call a lawyer, to get a divorce." Lucia took my hand, held it tight. "Grace, listen to me. Whatever is happening here, whatever the truth is, you're not alone. You understand? You're not alone in this." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to sink into that comfort, let someone else carry the weight for a while. But I couldn't. Because sitting in that parking lot, staring at my phone full of Daniel's increasingly frantic texts, I knew something that Lucia didn't. I knew what I'd seen in my husband's eyes when I came home from that surgery 18 months ago. Relief. The memory came back in pieces over the next few days. I didn't confront Daniel immediately. I couldn't. Not without proof, not without understanding exactly what I was accusing him of. So I played along, told him the ultrasound had shown something slightly unusual but nothing to worry about, scheduled a follow-up appointment with Dr. Reyes, let him hold me that night, his hand on my stomach, his lips against my hair, telling me how excited he was, how everything was going to be perfect. I lay there in the dark and thought about the January he'd been in Singapore, We'd talked every day. He'd complained about jet lag, about the humidity, about his colleagues who couldn't handle the spice level of the local food. He'd sent me photos of his hotel room, the view from his office window, the bowl of pho he'd eaten for dinner. I'd missed him so much, had counted down the days until he came home. But there had been that one weekend, hadn't there? That Saturday and Sunday when he'd said he needed to unplug, when he'd gone to some meditation retreat outside the city with a few of the local executives. No phones allowed, he'd said. Digital detox. He'd be back online Monday morning. I thought nothing of it at the time. Daniel was always doing things like that, corporate wellness programs, team-building exercises, whatever buzzword-laden initiative his company was pushing that quarter. Now I wondered. I didn't hire a lawyer, not right away. Instead, I called my sister, Miranda. Miranda is 4 years older than me and has worked in hospital administration for 15 years. She knows things about the medical system that most people never learn. How records are kept, who has access to what, where the bodies are buried, metaphorically speaking. I need a favor, I told her. A big one. Name it. I need you to look into a surgery I had 18 months ago at St. Clement's. I need to see the full file, every note, every piece of documentation, every name associated with the procedure. That's not really a favor, Gracie. That's your legal right as a patient. You can request your own records. I know, but I need them quietly, without anyone knowing I'm looking. Miranda was silent for a moment. Why? So I told her. The second version of the story, shorter this time, more focused. I told her about the ultrasound finding, the impossible timeline, the surgery that seemed more and more like the only explanation. Jesus Christ, she said when I finished. Grace, this is... I know. If what you're saying is true, if someone actually transferred tissue during your procedure, that's not malpractice, that's assault. That's... She broke off. God, are you okay? I mean, obviously you're not okay, but... I'm managing. I just need to know. I need to know what happened before I can figure out what to do about it. Okay. Her voice shifted, becoming businesslike. Give me a few days. I have contacts at St. Clement's. People who owe me favors. I'll see what I can find. Thank you. And Grace, whatever you find out, whatever this turns out to be, you call me. Day or night, you call me. I will. The next 3 days were the longest of my life. I went to work, came home, made dinner, smiled at Daniel across the table as he talked about his day, his projects, his plans for the baby's room. I let him put his hand on my belly, let him kiss me goodnight, let him believe that nothing had changed, but everything had changed. I was watching him now, noticing things I'd never noticed before, the way he checked his phone when he thought I wasn't looking, the way he tensed, almost imperceptibly whenever I mentioned my surgery, the way he deflected questions about Emily, his assistant, with a smoothness that might have been professionalism but might have been something else. I started paying attention to Emily too. She was younger than me, 28, maybe 29. Pretty in a generic way, blonde hair, symmetrical features, the kind of face you'd see in a stock photo. She'd been Daniel's assistant for 3 years. Which meant she'd been with him since before we started trying for a baby, since before my fertility struggles had become the defining feature of our marriage. I'd met her a handful of times, company picnics, holiday parties. She'd always been polite, always appropriate, never anything that raised red flags. But I remembered something now. Something from the party last year, the Christmas party, a few months before my surgery. Emily had been crying. I'd found her in the bathroom, dabbing at her eyes with a paper towel. She'd said it was nothing, just stress, just the holidays being overwhelming. I'd offered her a tissue and a sympathetic ear, and she'd thanked me and said she was fine, really, just needed a minute. And Daniel had been the one to drive her home that night because she was too upset to drive, he'd said, because he was her boss and it was the right thing to do. I'd thought nothing of it. I'd thought nothing of any of it. Miranda called on the 4th day. I found something, she said. Her voice was strange, tight in a way I'd never heard before. But Grace, before I tell you, I need you to sit down. I need you to be somewhere private. I'm at home. Daniel's at work. Good, okay, she took a breath. I pulled your surgical records. The official file looks normal, cyst removal, routine procedure, no complications. But there's an addendum, a note that was added to the file 6 months after your surgery, flagged as administrative correction. What does it say? It's technical, medical jargon, but the gist is that there was an incidental finding during your procedure, tissue that shouldn't have been there, tissue that was consistent with early-stage retained products of conception. The note says the surgeon removed it and sent it for pathology. But I wasn't pregnant. I know. That's what I thought too. So I dug deeper. Another breath. Grace, the pathology report is missing. What do you mean missing? I mean it's not in your file. It should be any tissue removed during surgery gets sent to pathology and the results become part of your permanent record. But there's nothing there. Just a notation that says report pending from 18 months ago. That doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't. Unless someone deleted it. Miranda's voice dropped. Grace, I found something else. A parallel file. It took me hours to track down, and I had to call in every favor I've ever earned, but I found it. What kind of file? A procedure, performed the same day as your surgery, in the same operating room by the same surgeon, a patient named Emily Chen. My stomach dropped. What kind of procedure? A D&C, dilation and curettage. Miranda paused. It's what they do after a miscarriage, to remove the remaining tissue. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, steadying myself. Are you saying, Bess? I'm saying that Emily Chen had a miscarriage the same day you had your cyst removed. I'm saying that both procedures were performed by Dr. Whitfield, and I'm saying that your file contains tissue that shouldn't exist, while her pathology report, which should match, is also missing from the hospital's system. Miranda, I know. This isn't a coincidence. No, it's not. Her voice was grim. Grace, I think someone moved tissue from Emily's procedure to yours. I don't know why. I don't know if it was intentional or some kind of catastrophic mistake. But the evidence, it was intentional. How do you know? Because I did know. Suddenly, horribly, I knew. The pieces were falling into place, the timing, the opportunity, the motive I hadn't been able to see until this moment. Because the baby wasn't Daniel's, I said. What? Emily's miscarriage, the pregnancy she lost. It wasn't some random tragedy. My voice was shaking now. It was Daniel's baby, and he couldn't let anyone find out. I need to explain something here, about my marriage, about the thing I never told anyone, not even Lucia, not even Miranda. Daniel and I had been trying to get pregnant for 3 years before that surgery. 3 years of temperature tracking and ovulation kits and timed intercourse that felt more like a medical procedure than lovemaking. 3 years of negative tests and sympathetic looks from doctors and well-meaning suggestions from friends who didn't understand why it wasn't working. The problem, as it turned out, was me. I have a condition, a minor hormonal imbalance that makes conception difficult, though not impossible. With treatment, the doctor said, I had a reasonable chance. It might take time, but it could happen. Daniel had been tested too, of course. That's standard procedure when a couple is struggling, and his results had come back normal. Better than normal, actually. Excellent motility, the doctor had said. No issues on his end. I'd been relieved. So relieved that at least one of us wasn't broken. But here's what I never told anyone, Mati. There was a moment early in our fertility journey when Daniel had suggested we take a break from trying. Not forever, just for a while. To take the pressure off. To enjoy each other again. I'd agreed. We'd stop tracking, stop timing, stop turning sex into a science experiment. And for a few months, things were better. We laughed more. We slept in on weekends. We felt like a couple again, instead of two people united by a shared failure. Then Daniel had gone to Singapore, and when he came back, he'd been different. More attentive, more eager to resume our fertility efforts, more insistent that we get serious about starting a family. I'd thought it was love. I'd thought the time apart had reminded him how much he wanted this. Now I understood what it really was. Guilt. Here's what I think happened. I don't have proof of all of it. Some of it is conjecture, educated guesses based on the evidence Miranda found and the timeline I've reconstructed from memory. But this is what I believe. Daniel was having an affair with Emily. It started sometime before his Singapore trip, maybe at that Christmas party when I found her crying in the bathroom, maybe earlier. I'll probably never know when or how, and in a way, it doesn't matter. What matters is that while Daniel was in Singapore, Emily realized she was pregnant. She must have told him during that digital detox weekend when he was unreachable maybe, or before he left, giving him 3 weeks to process it. Either way, he knew. And Daniel panicked, because an affair is one thing, a baby is another. A baby is evidence. A baby is permanent. A baby would mean questions he couldn't answer, a secret he couldn't keep. So he made a choice. He convinced Emily to terminate the pregnancy. Or maybe she had the miscarriage naturally. I've seen the medical records and D&Cs are performed for both. But either way, the result was the same, tissue that needed to be removed, evidence that needed to disappear. And then someone had an idea. I don't know if it was Daniel or Dr. Whitfield or some third party I'll never identify. But someone realized that there was a way to make the evidence vanish completely. Not just destroy it, that would leave questions, gaps in the records that someone might notice someday. No, they needed to hide it somewhere no one would ever look. Inside me, during my surgery, while I was unconscious on the operating table, trusting Dr. Whitfield to remove a cyst that was causing me pain. While Daniel sat in the waiting room playing the devoted husband, waiting to take me home. They put it inside me. They hid his secret in my body, and for 18 months I carried it around without knowing, this invisible evidence, this silent witness to my husband's betrayal, until I got pregnant. Until the ultrasound revealed what was never supposed to be found. I didn't confront Daniel that night, or the night after. I spent 2 weeks building my case instead. Quietly, methodically, the same way I approach everything in my life, with lists and spreadsheets and backup documentation. I requested my full medical records from St. Clement's through official channels, creating a paper trail. I hired a lawyer, not for the divorce, not yet, but for the malpractice suit that I knew would eventually come. I made copies of everything Miranda had found, stored them in 3 different locations, and gave one set to Lucia with instructions to release them to the press if anything happened to me. I know that sounds paranoid, but I wasn't dealing with a cheating husband anymore. I was dealing with someone who had violated my body, who had used me as a disposal site for evidence of his infidelity. Someone who had clearly been willing to go to extraordinary lengths to protect his secret. What else might he be willing to do? I didn't know, and I wasn't going to find out by being careless. The day I finally confronted him, it was raining. I remember that because I'd left work early, claiming a headache, and the drive home had taken twice as long as usual due to the weather. I'd had time to think, to rehearse what I wanted to say, to imagine how the conversation might go. None of my imaginings came close to reality. Daniel was home when I got there. He shouldn't have been. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and he usually worked until 6 or 7. But there he was, sitting in the kitchen, his laptop open in front of him, looking up when I came through the door. "You're home early," he said. "So are you." He smiled. It was the same smile I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago. Warm, slightly crooked, full of promises I'd been naive enough to believe. Surprise! I thought we could cook dinner together. I picked up that salmon you like. I set my bag down, hung up my coat, went through the motions of normalcy for what I knew that would be the last time. Then I sat down across from him. "I know about Emily," I said. His smile didn't falter. "Emily? What about her?" "I know about the affair. I know about the pregnancy, and I know what you did to make it disappear." Now his expression changed. Not shock. That came later. This was something else. Calculation. The rapid processing of a man who has been caught off guard but isn't ready to admit it yet. "Grace, I have no idea what you're talking about. Emily and I don't." My voice was steady, calmer than I felt. I have the records, Daniel. The surgical records. The pathology files that were supposed to be deleted. I know what Dr. Whitfield did during my surgery. I know what was transferred. He went pale. That's not... He stopped. Swallowed. You don't understand. You're misinterpreting... Am I? I pulled out my phone, opened the file Miranda had sent me, set it on the table between us. Your mistress had a miscarriage, your baby, and instead of dealing with it like a human being, instead of telling me the truth or ending our marriage or any of the things a decent person would do, you had someone hide the evidence inside my body while I was unconscious, while I was trusting you. Grace? I woke up from that surgery and you brought me soup. My voice cracked. You helped me to the bathroom. You slept on the couch so I'd have the bed to myself. And the whole time you knew what they'd done to me. Daniel's face crumpled. For a moment, just a moment, I saw something real there. Shame, maybe. Or fear, or the desperate recognition that the life he'd constructed was collapsing around him. I didn't know, he said. Not about that part. I swear to you, Grace, I didn't know they were going to... But you knew about Emily. Silence. You knew about the pregnancy. More silence. You knew she lost the baby, and you never told me. He put his head in his hands. When he spoke again, his voice was muffled, broken. It was a mistake. It was one mistake. We were going through such a hard time with the fertility issues, and she was just there. It didn't mean anything. It meant enough to get her pregnant. That was an accident. Was it? I leaned forward. Because I've been thinking about this a lot, Daniel. About how you suddenly got so interested in having a baby with me after your Singapore trip. About how insistent you were that we see the specialists, try the treatments, do whatever it took. He looked up. His eyes were wet, but there was something else in them now. Wariness. What are you saying? I'm saying you knew Emily was pregnant before you left for Singapore. I'm saying you convinced her to end it, or maybe it ended on its own, it doesn't really matter, but either way, you came back determined to make sure I got pregnant as soon as possible. I paused. Because you needed a backup, a legitimate child, something to point to if Emily ever changed her mind, ever decided to tell the truth. That's insane. Is it? You got her a new job 3 months later. A transfer to your company's Seattle office. I remember you said it was a promotion, that you'd recommended her for it. I shook my head. You were getting rid of her, putting 3,000 miles between your secret and your wife. Grace, please. I'm not finished. I stood up, walked to the window. The rain was coming down harder now, streaking the glass, blurring the world outside. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to keep all of this quiet. For now. Not to protect you, to protect myself, because I'm still pregnant, Daniel, with your child, our child, and I'm not going to let your mistakes hurt this baby. Thank you, Grace, thank you. I'm not done. I turned to face him. You're going to sign the divorce papers my lawyer has already drafted. You're going to agree to whatever custody arrangement I decide is appropriate. And you're going to stay far, far away from me until this baby is born. And then what? And then we'll see. I picked up my bag. But I want you to understand something, Daniel. I'm not doing this because I'm afraid of you. I'm not doing this because I can't prove what happened. I held his gaze. I'm doing this because I don't want our child to grow up knowing what their father did to their mother. I'm doing this because some secrets are better kept. Not for you, for them. He was crying now, actually crying, tears streaming down his face, his shoulders shaking. I felt nothing. Where will you go? He asked. That's not your concern anymore. I walked out of the kitchen, down the hallway, past our wedding photos, our vacation snapshots, the framed picture from our honeymoon that I'd always loved. At the door, I stopped. One more thing, I said without turning around. If you ever contact Emily again, if you ever try to hide another secret, hurt another woman, do any of the things I know you're capable of, I will release everything. The records, the evidence, all of it. I paused. I've made arrangements. It will happen whether I'm alive to see it or not. Do you understand? He didn't answer. I walked out into the rain. That was 7 months ago. I'm writing this now because the baby is almost here. 2 more weeks, the doctors say, and I'll be holding my daughter in my arms. A girl. I found out at the anatomy scan, the second anatomy scan performed by a different doctor at a different hospital, because I will never set foot in St. Clement's again. I filed for divorce 3 days after that conversation with Daniel. He signed everything I asked him to sign, agreed to everything I asked him to agree to. I don't know if it was guilt or fear or some combination of the two, but he didn't fight me on anything. He sends checks every month, child support, paid in advance through an escrow account my lawyer set up. He's never missed a payment. We don't speak. I moved back to my hometown, closer to Miranda and my parents. I'm staying in a small apartment for now, just me and the cat I adopted from the shelter last month, a gray tabby named Mist who sleeps on my belly and seems completely unfazed by the baby kicks. It's quiet here, peaceful. The kind of life I never thought I'd have in the aftermath of everything. I still think about it sometimes. What happened? What was done to me? There are nights when I wake up at 3 a.m., my heart racing, my mind spinning through the implications of what I know. Someone put another woman's tissue inside my body? That's not a metaphor. That's not an exaggeration. That's a fact, documented in medical records that now sit in a safe deposit box, waiting for the day I decide what to do with them. Most days I choose not to do anything, not because I've forgiven Daniel. I haven't. I don't think I ever will, but because I've realized something in these long months of waiting for my daughter to arrive. Revenge isn't closure. Exposure isn't healing. The truth has power, immense power, but wielding that power comes with costs. Costs I'm not willing to pay. Not yet. Maybe not ever. What I have now is enough. A life that's mine, a body that's mine again, even with all its complicated history. A baby who will never know what her father did, at least not until she's old enough to understand it. And Dr. Rhea's words, echoing in my memory. You need to leave now. Call your lawyer and get a divorce. She was right, but not for the reason she thought. There's one more thing I should tell you. Last month, I got a letter. It was forwarded from my old address. The house Daniel and I had shared, the house he's living in now alone. The return address was Seattle. From Emily. I almost threw it away unopened. What could she possibly have to say to me? What could she possibly think I'd want to hear? But curiosity won out. It always does. The letter was 3 pages long, handwritten on pale blue paper. The handwriting was small and cramped, as if she'd been afraid of running out of space. She apologized, not in a way that asked for forgiveness. She made it clear she knew she didn't deserve that. She apologized because she wanted me to know that she hadn't understood at the time what Daniel was planning. She'd had the miscarriage naturally, a chromosomal abnormality, just like Dr. Reyes had suggested, and she'd been devastated. Daniel had been there for her, had held her while she cried, had promised he'd take care of everything. She'd thought that meant emotional support, maybe therapy, maybe the transfer to Seattle, which she'd accepted gratefully, eager to put distance between herself and the mess she'd made. She hadn't known about the surgery, hadn't known what taking care of everything actually meant. Not until months later, when she started having complications of her own, when her new doctor in Seattle found something unusual in her records, or rather, found something missing. When she started asking questions and getting answers that didn't make sense, she'd pieced it together eventually. Different pieces than I had, from a different angle, but arriving at the same horrible conclusion. Daniel had used both of us. He'd used her body to create the problem, and my body to dispose of it. The letter ended with a single line. I know you have no reason to believe me, but I thought you should know the truth. Not his version, not the one he tells himself to sleep at night. The real truth, which is that neither of us ever meant anything to him except as solutions to his problems. I sat with that letter for a long time. Then I folded it up, put it in the safe deposit box with everything else, and went for a walk. It was evening. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I walked slowly, one hand on my belly, feeling my daughter shift and turn inside me. I thought about Emily, about her small, cramped handwriting, about the years she'd spent living with what she'd done, even if it hadn't been intentional, even if she'd been a victim too. I thought about Daniel, about the man I'd married, the man I'd loved, the man who'd turned out to be someone I'd never really known at all. I thought about Dr. Whitfield, who was still practicing medicine at St. Clement's, still performing surgeries, still holding other women's lives in his hands. The malpractice case is moving forward slowly, the way these things always do, but there's no guarantee of justice. There rarely is, and I thought about myself, the woman I was before, the woman I am now, the woman I'm becoming. I stopped at the edge of a small park near my apartment. There's a bench there, overlooking a pond, where I sometimes sit in the mornings and watch the ducks. I sat down now, in the fading light, and watched the water ripple in the breeze. I don't know what happens next. That's the truth, the realest, rawest truth I can offer. I don't have a plan. I don't have a neat resolution. I have evidence in a safe deposit box and a baby on the way, and a life that looks nothing like the one I imagined for myself. But I also have this, a body that is mine, a future that is mine, a daughter who will grow up knowing that her mother survived something terrible and came out the other side. Not unscathed, not unchanged. But here, still standing. The sun slipped below the horizon. The sky turned from pink to purple to a deep dark blue. I stood up, stretched, and walked home. My daughter was born on a Tuesday, 7 pounds 4 ounces, a full head of dark hair, eyes that might be brown like mine or might change. The nurses said it was too early to tell. I named her Lily, after my grandmother, who was the strongest woman I ever knew. The first time I held her, I cried, not from sadness, from something else, something I couldn't name. Relief, maybe, or gratitude, or the overwhelming realization that this tiny, perfect creature had chosen me as her mother, despite everything. She doesn't know the story of how she came to exist. She doesn't know about the ultrasound that revealed a secret, or the doctor who pulled me aside and told me to run, or the weeks of quiet investigation that uncovered what had been done to me. She doesn't know that her father is a stranger now, a name on a check, a ghost in another city. All she knows is my voice, my heartbeat, the way I hold her close and whisper that everything is going to be okay. And it will be. Not easily, not cleanly, not without scars. But okay. I have to believe that. Some nights I still wake up thinking about the gel, cold and clinical against my stomach, the flickering screen. Dr. Reyes' face, changing from professional calm to something else, something urgent and afraid. I think about how close I came to never knowing if I hadn't gotten pregnant, if I hadn't had that ultrasound. If Dr. Reyes had been a different kind of doctor, one who dismissed unusual findings or chalked them up to artifacts of imaging, I would have carried that secret forever. Evidence of my husband's betrayal hidden inside my own body, invisible and silent. The thought still makes me shiver, but then I look at Lily, sleeping in her bassinet, her tiny fists curled against her chest, and I remember that the same pregnancy that revealed the truth also gave me her. The worst thing that ever happened to me led to the best thing. I don't know what to make of that. I don't know if it means anything, or if it's just the random cruelty and kindness of a universe that doesn't care about fairness or justice, or the stories we tell ourselves to make sense of our lives. What I know is this: I am here, she is here, we are together, and whatever comes next, we'll face it the same way I've faced everything since that day in Dr. Reyes' office. One step at a time, one breath at a time, one day at a time, the cold gel, the flickering screen, the moment my life split in two. It happened. It's over. And I'm still here. That has to be enough. Lily is 3 months old now. She smiles when she sees me. Actually smiles. Not just the reflexive newborn grimace, but real recognition, real joy. I didn't know before I had her that a baby's smile could feel like salvation. We have a routine now: morning feedings at 6, naps at 9 and 1, a walk in the park in the afternoon, weather permitting, bath time at 7, bedtime at 8, followed by one more feeding at 11, and then blessed sleep until the next round begins. It's exhausting. It's repetitive. It's the most meaningful thing I've ever done. My mother comes by twice a week to help. Miranda stops in on weekends, bringing groceries and gossip and the kind of sisterly advice that drives me crazy, but also keeps me sane. I'm thinking about going back to work eventually, part-time maybe. something that uses my brain but doesn't consume my life. Or maybe not. Maybe I'll stay home with Lily until she's old enough for school. I have the savings to do it. Money I set aside over years, money Daniel never knew about, money that belongs to me and me alone. I haven't decided yet. That's okay. I have time. Last week, I got an update from my lawyer. The malpractice case is progressing. Depositions have been scheduled. Dr. Whitfield's legal team is fighting every step, of course, but the evidence is strong. My lawyer thinks we have a real chance. Not at justice, exactly. Justice would require a system that cares about what was done to me, and I stopped believing in that kind of justice a long time ago. But accountability, yes. Maybe accountability is possible. I haven't decided if I'll testify. There are pros and cons, my lawyer says. Emotional impact versus potential exposure. The story I'd have to tell, in public, on the record, forever searchable and archivable. I think about it sometimes. What it would feel like to sit in a courtroom and say, out loud, what happened to me. To name the violation. To make it real in a way that transcripts and evidence files can't. But I also think about Lily, about what she'll be able to find someday if she goes looking, about the words she'll read, the details she'll uncover, the truth about her father that I've been so careful to shield her from. Is public testimony worth that cost? I don't know. I'm still deciding. Daniel sent a letter last month. I didn't open it. Not out of fear. There's nothing he could say that would hurt me now. Not out of anger, though. That's still there, buried deep. I didn't open it because I realized, holding the envelope in my hands, that I simply don't care anymore. His words, his excuses, his attempts at explanation or redemption or whatever he thinks he's offering, none of it matters. I have a daughter to raise, a life to rebuild, a future that belongs to me and me alone. His letter sits in a drawer somewhere. Maybe I'll open it someday. Maybe I won't. Either way, it doesn't change anything. I was at the grocery store last Tuesday when I saw someone who looked like him. Same height, same build, same way of walking, slightly hunched, hands in pockets. My heart stopped. Just for a moment, long enough for the fear to spike, for the old reflexes to kick in. Then the man turned, and it wasn't him, just a stranger with similar features. A coincidence. Nothing more. I finished my shopping with shaking hands, drove home with the radio turned up loud, put the groceries away while Lily napped in the next room. And then I sat on my kitchen floor and cried. Not because I was afraid, not because I missed him. I cried because I realized how much of me still belonged to what happened. How many corners of my mind were still occupied by Daniel, by Dr. Whitfield, by the cold gel and the flickering screen, and the moment my life split in two. I don't want to live there anymore. I want to move on, really move on. Not just functionally, not just day to day, but deep down in the places that matter. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if trauma ever fully releases its grip, or if the best we can hope for is learning to live alongside it. But I'm going to try. For myself. For Lily. For the woman I'm becoming. There's a moment late at night when everything is quiet. Lily is sleeping. The apartment is still. The only sound is the hum of the refrigerator and the distant rush of traffic on the highway. I sit by the window sometimes in those moments, looking out at the darkness, thinking about everything and nothing. I think about the choices that led me here, the ones I made and the ones that were made for me, the path I thought I was on and the path I actually walked. I think about what it means to survive something terrible. Not just to endure it, but to survive it, to come out the other side as a different person, a better person, someone capable of growth and change and love. I don't know if I'm that person yet. Some days I feel strong, other days I feel like I'm barely holding together, like the slightest pressure could shatter me into pieces. But I'm still here, still trying, still getting up every morning and doing the best I can. That's not nothing. That's not nothing at all. Lily laughed for the first time yesterday, a real laugh, belly deep, full-bodied, the most beautiful sound I've ever heard. I was making faces at her, silly faces, the kind adults make when they're alone with a baby and no one's watching. She'd been fussy all morning, and I was tired, and I was just trying to get her to stop crying for 5 minutes. And then she laughed. It broke something open in me, something I didn't know was still locked away. I laughed too, laughed until I was crying, laughed until I couldn't breathe, laughed until Lily was staring at me with wide eyes like she couldn't figure out what was wrong with her mother. "Nothing's wrong," I told her, wiping my eyes. "Everything's right. Everything's finally right." She didn't understand. Of course she didn't. She's 3 months old. But someday she will. Someday, when she's older, I'll tell her this story. Not all of it, not the details, not the ugliness, but the heart of it, the part that matters. I'll tell her that I survived something terrible, that I made impossible choices, that I carried a secret I never asked for and came out the other side. And I'll tell her that she, this small, perfect, miraculous creature, was the light that pulled me through. She'll roll her eyes, probably. Teenagers do. But maybe, somewhere deep down, she'll understand. Maybe she'll know that she was never, for one single moment, unwanted or unloved. Maybe that will be enough. The sun is setting as I write this. Orange and pink, just like that evening months ago when I sat by the pond and tried to make sense of my life. Lily is sleeping in my arms, mist is curled at my feet. The apartment is quiet and warm. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. I don't know what comes next. But I know this. I am here. I am alive. I am holding my daughter. And for now, for this moment, this breath, this heartbeat, that is enough.